Have you ever felt like your mind just won't shut off? You know that feeling, right? Like there's this endless broadcast of worries and what-ifs and replays of conversations just looping in your head, and you can't find the off switch? Well, you are definitely not alone. And in this explainer, we're going to dive deep into the hidden psychology of why our brains do this and what's really going on under the hood.
So first, let's just get on the same page and talk about what this mental spin cycle actually feels like. Because it's a very specific kind of thinking that really loves to trap us in a loop. Okay, does this sound familiar to you? You find yourself playing back conversations from hours, days, maybe even years ago, just analyzing every single word you said or all the things you wish you'd said instead? Or how about this one? You zero in on every tiny little mistake, whether it's big or small, and you just dissect it from every possible angle until it feels about 100 times bigger than it actually was.
Or maybe your mind loves to time travel into the future, mapping out every single possible scenario for something coming up. But, of course, usually focusing on the absolute worst thing that could happen. Yeah, if you've been nodding along to any of this, you are in exactly the right place.
Now, here is a really powerful way to reframe this. We usually think of overthinking as some kind of character flaw, right? Like, oh, I'm just a worrier. But the psychological truth is way more fascinating. It's not actually about thinking too much. It's a primitive survival response. Your brain is literally trying to protect you. It's working under this false idea that if it can just think enough, it can somehow prevent anything bad from ever happening again.
So let's explore that idea a little bit more. How does this well-intentioned, but let's be honest, totally misguided survival instinct actually play out in our modern lives?
This gets right to the core of the issue. We put this label on ourselves. I'm a worrier. But what's really happening is that our brain is just desperately searching for closure. It treats those past mistakes and awkward moments kind of like a computer treats an unsaved file. It just keeps sending you that little pop-up reminder because the task feels unfinished.
And this is exactly how that loop gets wired into our heads. It all starts with some kind of unresolved event. An argument or a weird interaction. Then your brain, which craves resolution, starts seeking closure. But since it can't actually time travel and fix it, the only tool it has is to replay the event over and over and over, which of course solves nothing and just repeats the loop, leaving you totally exhausted.
And here's the real driver behind that loop. Your mind finds uncertainty deeply uncomfortable. It sees it as dangerous. It would actually rather have a definite bad answer than no answer at all. That's why it keeps spinning all these scenarios. It's trying to get rid of that not knowing, even if it has to torture you with a bunch of negative possibilities to do it.
Now, this instinct to find closure gets totally supercharged by two really powerful forces: anxiety and perfectionism. Let's take a look at how they work together to create this trap that can feel almost impossible to escape.
Overthinking and anxiety are basically locked in this vicious feedback loop. The more you analyze and pick things apart, the more uncertain and anxious you feel. And of course, the more anxious you feel, the more your brain tells you that you need to analyze your way out of it. They just feed each other, creating this cycle that gets harder and harder to break.
This right here is the great illusion of overthinking. It feels productive, doesn't it? It feels like you're preparing or being careful or somehow gaining control over a situation. But in reality, you're not actually creating solutions. You're just creating mental exhaustion. It's the feeling of being really busy without ever actually making any progress.
And then you've got perfectionism. When the standard you hold yourself to is perfection, every single decision, from what to eat for lunch to a major career choice, suddenly feels incredibly heavy. You get completely stuck in that what if I choose wrong mindset, and you end up waiting for this perfect sense of certainty that, let's be real, never actually shows up. And all that leads to is paralysis and burnout.
Okay, so we understand the problem, we see the loops, we see the traps. But how do we actually get out? Well, the answer isn't to think harder, it's to make a really fundamental mental shift.
This is it. This is the question that fuels the entire cycle of overthinking. It's completely rooted in fear and the anticipation of failure. You could say it's the engine of our anxiety.
But watch what happens when you change the question. The entire shift happens here. Instead of focusing on preventing a negative outcome, you shift to trusting your own ability to handle whatever comes your way. What if I can deal with it? See, this isn't about being certain of the outcome. It's about being certain of yourself.
And here's a super practical technique to actually do that.
First, you have to build up the awareness to simply notice when your mind is caught in one of those loops. Second, you ask a simple but really powerful question. Is this thought useful right now? Not is it true, but is it useful? And if the answer is no, you gently guide your attention back to the present moment, to your breath or the feeling of your feet on the floor. That awareness is what breaks the cycle.
So as we wrap this up, there's one final and I think incredibly important reframe to consider. It really gets to the very heart of why so many of us overthink in the first place.
I really want you to let this one sink in for a second. Overthinking is not a sign that you're broken or weak. It's actually the opposite. It is often a sign that you are a deeply empathetic, conscientious person and that you care immensely about the people and the outcomes in your life.
And here's the crucial distinction. The goal isn't to stop caring. The goal is to learn how to care without letting it completely consume you. It's about setting mental boundaries so that your deep sense of care doesn't turn inward and become this cycle of self-destruction. Learning when to let go, that's the real skill. So,